We are getting ready for the 75th anniversary of the National Service Conference of the American Ethical Union. And so today, on Saturday, March 27th, 2004, here we are sitting in your apartment having a wonderful visit. We can see some of the pictures that Rose is very proud of. This is when Rose won the Eleanor Schnur Award from the UNA USA in 2001. And we're looking at this picture of Julie Newman and Rose when she was a young woman in Brooklyn Society. Julie was very supportive of the Brooklyn Women's Club and was the founders of the Brooklyn Ethical Culture School. We can see one of the great events of Rose's life when she attended the World Food Congress as the National Service Conference representative. At that time, it was called the National Women's Conference of the American Ethical Union. I did want to ask you, why have you continued at the UN so long through the National Service Conference of the American Ethical Union?
The UN, the United Nations, is really an outgrowth or part of, an important part of the American Ethical Union. Its charter really tells the world what the ethical society is all about. I believe when I became actively engaged in it, because my children went to the Sunday school before we became members. And
that was at the Brooklyn Society.
The Brooklyn Society, yes. And it became more and more important to me. And it really is when I started going to join the American Association of the United Nations. That's before.
That was in 1952.
Oh, about 1952.
It was around the same time you put your children in the religious education?
Well, no, my children went to Sunday school before that, before I became involved in Sunday school.
What did you want them to learn?
I thought the ethical society embodied exactly the kind of ideas I had about what religion was all about. I think it was their concern for people and what was going on in our, even locally.
But at some point, you then moved on to the national level of the National Women's Conference, it was called. Do you remember when you began to take your place in the national level?
Well, Selma Freudenthal, who was president of the Brooklyn, and she was then a member of the board of the National Service Conference. And so she was president at that time. And we worked very hard in the society.
We do know as a matter of record that you were the National Women's Conference president before 1960. So between 1956 and 1960, you were the president of the National Women's Conference.
56 to 60.
Right.
Well, I had a learning process with May Wise and Leah Horwitz. Vera Galanta was my alternate for years in the 70s.
In the 70s.
We went to all the conferences that were held in Europe. A lot of, what was the last name now?
Bernard.
Bernard. A lot of Bernard became president, was president for on and off for many years because she was the rep at the UN and did a fantastic job. And she was very well known at the UN and worked like mad.
But Lotta must have recognized there was an important reason for the National Women's Conference to change its name.
Because all the brilliant women and more went out and took jobs. But I don't think men really have the capacity to do a volunteer job while they're doing a paid job. But of course, it's just really very difficult for them. And then I was fortunate and had,
Are you saying that you feel women understand, they put the same energy into their volunteer work?
it's amazing how women can do.
More
I think
than
it's
one thing?
because women run a household, and many of them hold important jobs, but they always have time for their volunteer work. I was a stay-at-home mom. I was very fortunate.
I think, Rose,
As wife
you're
and mother.
coming around full circle. Now think about your dream for the future, for the National Service
Well-
Conference. What is your dream for the National Service
I
Conference?
see nothing but growth for everything, growth, to reach the different societies on the local, for
Level.
the importance of the local and the national, for the international growth of the movement.
And that it seems to me that we can quote from one of the recent articles written by Sylvan and Phyllis Ehrenfeld, that in quoting the Charter, they say, "The people of the United Nations have in the Charter reaffirmed their faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, and in the equal rights of men and women. Everyone has duties to the community where alone the free and full development of one's personality is possible." We have a lot to thank you for the years you've put in to keep the National Service Conference going.
Look what the Ethical Society has started in the United States. Felix Anna's time. And now that we have Martha Gallagher as our main rep, and what she has done since she joined, wonderful part of the growth of the National Service Conference, and I see it growing, and what she has inspired the growth of the movement. And I have named the people in the New York Society and the others that have been members, and so in our membership, former leaders and moved out of the New York area have remained as members of the National Service Conference.
Yes, Rose, it's true. You know, we have members in 17 states, and that we have initiatives on the East Coast and the West Coast, and that you've been a wonderful inspiration in terms of membership and growth in membership, and thank you so much for this
I've been
interview.
so fortunate.